Hello everyone, today we're going to draw in 2D in Rhino, and the areas that all you need to know to draw 2D in Rhino are these little icons here and this little area here, and we'll go over these one by one in this next tutorial. So let's just go to the top view and make that larger by double clicking on top. The first one up here are the points. Now, if you hover over this point, you can see that if you want to draw a single point, you press your left mouse button. And if you want to do multiple points, you do it with a right button. So single point, and you're immediately out of it. If you do a right click, you get multiple points, and however many times you're going to click, it will be the next one. So how do you get out of here? You go to your cancel tool and click left, and you're out of it. Now, you will learn as you progress through this program shortcuts. So for instance, if you want to do this again, you do multiple points. Rather than navigating to the arrow here, you can just hit escape. Next up are curves and lines. They're right here. I'll start with the curves through control points. This is not something that you use regularly, but sometimes when you're tracing a more organic shape or you wanted to work on some landscape drawings, it can come in handy. The other one here is much more important, which is the polyline and the line segments. Now, they're very similar in the way that if you do right click, you get to line segments. You draw something like a line by left clicking, and right clicking to finish it. Each of these lines are drawn as a segment, whereas a polyline that you get with a left click, you draw the same thing. Left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, and right click to get out, is a single line. I use this a little bit more often, but both of them have their own merit. By the way, one note on selection. If you want to select, let's say both these lines, you can select a single line by clicking on it, but let's say you want to select both of these lines at the same time. You can select a portion of the lines by going from right to left, and that will select both of these lines. However, if you go from left to right and you do the same thing, you select only a portion of a line, it doesn't register. If you go from left to right, you have to select the entire line or both lines in its entirety in order to select both ways. It's a subtle difference, but once you get more familiar with the program, both techniques have their place. So this was kind of like free drawing. I think it is important later on that you are drawing exact, and two things can help you achieving just that. So right now here you can kind of see a bunch of little icons that especially this ortho is really helpful. So if I select a polyline and I press a point, I move around to create a second point. As you can see, it's very difficult to exactly get this straight. If you want to be exact, you turn on the ortho either by clicking on it or pressing F8, and that will produce a straight line regardless of where you exactly place your cursor for your second point. That's really important in order to produce an exact drawing that needs straight lines. Escape. The other one here is Object Snap. It's turned on as Osnap, and Osnap produces exact snap points to a line segment or any segment, any geometric segment. So let's say I draw a line here, and I want to continue this line exactly at the end point. If I have object snap on and end is checked, if I want to draw again and continue this line, I'll just get close to the endpoint and it gets a little icon that says end. Once that icon is up, you click, it is exactly at the endpoint. Now, there are a couple of options, and depending on what type of geometry you are drawing, certain checkboxes have different merits. I like to at least have the endpoint, the midpoint, the intersection, and a perpendicular on. So endpoint we just talked about. Midpoint will get you to the midpoint of a line. Perpendicular gets you perpendicular to the line that you're drawing to. So if I wanted to draw a line here and I wanted to have that exactly perpendicular to the other line. Now, obviously, when we are drawing straight lines, this will be automatically perpendicular, but if you have the ortho off and you don't know exactly, this will get you to perpendicular. Int stands for intersection, so if you wanted to draw another line right around there, and you don't have an endpoint and you don't have a midpoint, but you still want to start that line right here at the intersection, if you have int on, you can create that line right there at the intersection. The last thing that I usually have on is this gumball, but that's a kind of preference. Some people find it kind of annoying, but it allows you to move things around by dragging a line left and right. So you can use your own preference if you want to turn that on or off. So I stuck a little bit longer with these line segments and polylines because I think those are the most important things. We can quickly go through the other ones. There is an ellipse that you can draw from left to right, kind of creates an ellipse. Circle, very similar. And the one thing that I'd like to kind of talk to you about is that, you know, we're kind of eyeballing all of these dimensions. The nice thing about Rhino is that whenever you hit a command, there's a little bar here that gives you some information. So if you wanted to draw a circle with a particular radius, you can click on radius and say, all right, I want this to be 10 centimeters. And now you have a circle with a diameter of 10 centimeters. That's another thing that as you get farther down your path to Rhino, or the path to learning Rhino, something that you'll become increasingly more familiar with. So let's just continue in that spirit with the rectangle. If we wanted to draw a rectangle of a particular size, you can click and you want to make it 45 centimeters wide. You can type 45, enter. You want to have it 15 centimeters tall. You can do 15, hit enter, and you have your 45 by 15 centimeter rectangle. The next one here is arcs. I never use it, ever. But you can kind of click here, and it creates an arc. I use a different technique if I'd ever have to draw something like this, but you know, it's there. And the same thing goes for this polygon. If I draw a polygon, I draw it through a polyline, but again, you can click on it and it creates a polygon with 4 sides. But if you want to, you know, make a pentagon, make 5 sides, right? You want a octagon. You can make 8 sides. So if I find octagons drawing not that useful, the next one here, this filler tool, is super useful. So I'll go ahead and draw, you know, a couple of random lines that are not connected. But I'd like to have them connected, you know, and I'd like to have them connected exactly as they extend and stop once they meet each other. And that's what filler does. So if you want to filler these curves, usually you can set the radius, and let's set it to 0 so that it stops exactly at that point. By the way, I hit the space bar to repeat a command. But if I wanted to give them a little radius, I could do that too. Go back to this filler, and I set the radius at 5 centimeters. Then, you know, I'd produce a triangle with a radius of 5 centimeters at each corner. So what I want you to take away from this class here, or this lesson, this little tutorial here, is that basically if you are able to understand just a handful of tricks, especially the polyline, the filler tools, the Osnap and the Ortho, you can draw anything you want in 2D in Rhino. And I think that's a good takeaway to have from this class. So that's it. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments box below. If you want to see more of these video tutorials, you can either subscribe or visit renderschool.org, where there's a bunch more for you to see. And if you have any questions there, feel free to email me, and I'm happy to answer the questions for you.